Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Friedman Adventures live here from 22nd Street Landing in beautiful San Pedro, California. It's great to be with you on this very special presentation. It's Wednesday night. As you know, normally it's a Tuesday night thing, but we've got a really special guest tonight, David Choate. David, man, it's an honor to have you here, my friend. It's good to see you again.
It's good seeing you. I'm honored to be here. I'm humbled. It's you do a great job with this, and I started watching or listening on my walks, and I really like your show. And we ran into each other when I was getting on the Freedom, and I said, "Hey, do you ever have just regular fishermen? I don't own a boat." And you said, "Yes, sir. When would you like to come?"
I think it was me who suggested, because I consider you such an incredible angler, and you give so many tips. And if you talk to people who have met you and fished with you, they all say the same thing. Nicest guy you'd ever meet, and willing to share his knowledge. And I think that is so important. And of course, that's what we're going to do here this evening.
Yes, if I can help somebody catch a fish, somebody's having a tough trip, pinning a bait on, hooking a bluefin tuna, or whatever, I'll give you a hook, I'll give you a leader, I'll do whatever I can do, because I've caught everything I wanted to catch. I mean, there's a couple on the bucket list, and we'll see if I'm supposed to get those or not. But now I love helping people better their game.
That's awesome. Well, Steve he's not really interested in any tips. He just wants you to bring him a fish. He can care less about it. Hey, before we get going, let me thank some of our sponsors. 22nd Street Landing here in beautiful San Pedro, California. Of course, Daiwa now is our rod and reel sponsor. You can see them back behind me there. Opsin Fluorocarbon. We love Greg Brown. We love his product, and he does really a great job out there. CCA, making fishing possible here for all Southern Californians, Northern Californians. Fish Taco Magazine, Sean Arnold, and tonight's Tackle Grab. Steve, we're doing a tackle grab for our Patreon members. What do we have tonight?
That is correct. Tonight we're going to be doing one of the tackle accessory bags again, some Daiwa swag, and along with some ahi lures. So a lot of good stuff going out tonight. You guys can see who the winner is at the end of tonight's show.
Right. Is there still an opportunity to sign up now, and be eligible for tonight, or not?
Absolutely. If you guys join, you can join by going to www.friedmanadventurespodcast.com. And then you'll see on that screen behind you there, it says join our live weekly tackle grabs. Sign up, and then you guys will be eligible to win tonight.
Thank you very much, Steve. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and we'd love it if you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, just as David Choate has done. Our charters for this year, they are all up on Facebook right now. So if you go to Friedman Adventures on Facebook, you can see all of our charters. And as Steve mentioned, you can sign up on Patreon. All right, let's get into it, Dave, because, you and I have a lot in common. We both grew up in the South Bay, down in Redondo. You and I spent, a week together in Panama?
Yes, we went on the Royal Star down to Panama back when they closed the Revillas, and
exactly.
Tim and Randy always trying to come up with different ideas, and it was a wonderful trip down there. We got a lot of variety. We had Barry Breitenberg on the trip.
Yes, yeah.
And Pete Gray was on the
there,
trip.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I caught peacock bass. We caught pargo. We caught all sorts of snapper. I got a really big amberjack.
Right. I remember that.
And the very first video of me using the rail, you and Terrence shot it.
Yeah.
And you
that
gave
was
me
the first one?
That was the first time that anybody'd ever shot me using the rail. And the funny thing is, I still have that file. I still can watch that.
That is awesome.
And it makes me ill to watch it because my technique has so much improved.
Well, let's get into that right away, because I think it's so important. Railrod fishing now is a part of the game, especially because of this bluefin tuna fishery. It's now something that I think are starting to take for granted. But what is the David Choate way to do it?
Well,
because you catch these 200-pound fish in 10 minutes. You pull hard, and your technique is perfect. So what is it? What can you share with everybody?
Well, for one thing, your gear has to match. And as you can see here, I have this is a kind of new rod. It's called a Deviant. It's made by United Composites, but the only place you can get it is at 310 Rodworks. Darren Dohe told Randy Penny how he wanted this, where he wanted the graphite, and it's kind of in between a Gladiator and an Invictus, so it's a pretty stout rod.
And let's give a shout out to Darren because he's excited about you being here. He really was.
Darren has a lot of products over there at 310 Rodworks. On this, I also buy his crimps. He bought the Sato crimp from Gary Sato.
Right.
So I that's what I use for my connecting my fluorocarbon to my Spectra. I have on this one, I have a Makira 20. A lot of people think that a 20 size reel maybe can't handle a big fish, but I never feel undergunned with this right here.
Never had a problem with it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Not even close?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to run out of line, you're going to run out of line with a 50 wide. So, I mean, if that fish is going to take off, he's going to take off. And the best thing you can do is put a big bend in the rod. And the reason I say that about the rod is so important. I was on a trip on the Islander in the early summer this year. Guy had a beautiful reel. I forget which brand it was, but it was a big game reel.
Yeah.
And he had it on a rod that was rated for 40 pound. And this fish, the captain was just a ball of sweat trying to get that fish to gaff, and he couldn't do anything because the rod just was not helping at all.
Right, I get it.
So it's all about the balance. And then, it's a lot of people have met me on trips and they'll go like, God, I thought you'd be a lot bigger. and that's the thing. You don't have to be big. Women do really well. It's about stamina. I listen to your podcast. I go on my walk around Columbia Park. I walk a good hour a day after work. And I work in construction, and I'm up and down the stairs all day. It's all about cardio. It's not about lifting. It's not about brute strength. Funny story about that. Once I was on the Qualifier 105, and there was this guy on there that had guns on guns. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm the Olympic weightlifting coach. Oh, wow. Roger Marandino, the guy's name was. He was from New York. And so we both got bit on the chunk. You're not going to get
Roger mad at us, are you?
No, I hope not.
He sounds like a big guy.
He's about my size, but he's built. So,
we I got the police here to guard him in case he breaks in.
We both get bit on the chunk about the same time, and I get my fish in about 20 minutes. It's a good one, a 180. And he is still on his like an hour and a half later. So finally, and he's just a ball of sweat by this time. And how did you do that? And I said, technique.
Right. That's really what it is, right?
One of my mottos is, if the line's not going out, it should be coming back.
That's right.
So you got to turn the handle. And I'll stay in high gear as long as I can. I rarely go to low. You only go to low when you can't gain any line.
And when the line is going out, that is not the time to be stressing out and pulling. It's the time to kind of take a breath.
Take a breath.
Let the fish do its thing.
Bend the rod.
Yes.
Just the more you bend the rod, the better you can stop them. I've had some wonderful fish in my career. One of them, I got some pictures here. And
hold that up to the camera there, and if you want to talk about any of that.
We were on the Royal Polaris at Clipperton, and this is one of my mentors here. I had two mentors, Dave Adamo and Stas Vilonikas.
Okay.
And I just hung out with those guys, and I asked a lot of questions. Well, I had this was one of the occasions where I had back-to-back cows on back-to-back casts. And one of my favorite cows, Dave hooked up the same time I did, and they're 200-pound fish, and we just went back and forth, over, under, never got further than 100 feet from the boat. I had bloody knuckles, bloody knees, and I loved it. It was like, just bring it on.
That's great.
The other thing that I'm really proud of in this picture here is my son Matt. Matt lives in Bullhead City now, but he comes out and fishes with me a couple of times a year. And he was 18 years old. I took him to Clipperton.
Oh, God. What a dream trip.
It says the very first day he gets a fish just barely over 100 pounds. And I told him, I said, you continue like that, and you're going to be done before this trip really gets going. So he started watching me. He started watching Stas. He started watching Domo. And the three of us kind of whipped him into shape. The very last morning, he's winding his skipjack back to the boat, and Roy Rose and I were standing right there, and we're watching. And this thing comes out and eats his skipjack right next to the boat. We're like, whoa! Matt did a fabulous job. He's 18 years old. He put into his game everything that he'd seen me and Stas and Domo doing, and he caught this 244-pounder.
Wow. And so he watched you and learned the technique and put it into practice right away.
Yeah. Like if the fish is over there, I'm pointing my rod that way. If the fish is over there, I'm pointing my rod that way. I like to be in the stern corner, and Billy Santiago, now he's on the Pacific Queen now, but he was on the Royal Polaris.
For a long time.
Yeah. And he told me about doing this. And what that does, that makes the circles get smaller. And then you're not having all these scary moments where the fish is coming close to the propellers and the rudders, or if you're up in the bow, the sonar dome and the anchor line are things that we got to watch out for. So the rail is a great thing, but I have friends that still use harness and use short rods, and they're very good at it.
They still do?
Yeah. Uh-huh. My friend, my roommate, my brother from another mother, he's a pilot for Delta, Tim Turris. We're always roommates when we go on the XL together. Yeah. He fishes really short rods in a harness, but he's a real tall guy, and he just says he just can't get the hang of using the rail.
Yeah.
But we both land our fish in about the same amount of time.
That's amazing. So you said the first time anybody filmed you was back on the Royal Star. Was that had you started using the rail before that? For many,
I had been
years,
using the rail, yeah.
Well, did you start before it became a thing?
I was on the trip I caught my first cow on the Royal Polaris. Brian Kiyahara was running the Royal Polaris at that time. And my sponsor was on the boat, and he hooked a big fish, and he didn't want to fight it, but he wanted to see it get on the boat.
Yeah.
So he handed the rod to Brian Kiyahara, and Brian Kiyahara, at that time, everybody was using harnesses and belts.
Right.
And Brian didn't, and I was, what is he doing? And he used the rail, and they got the fish, and I told Rollo, I want to learn that. He says, well, just keep coming.
And so you finally got the hang of it, and man, it makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it?
So my next trip on the Royal Polaris, my roommate was a guy named Bob Pound, and he's real good friends with Stas and Domo, and he stopped fishing, and he coached me, and he gave me the ins and outs of it. And if you're ever on a trip and you want to learn or improve your technique of using the rail, ask me. I'll make sure that I'm not in the way of the crew members, and I'll coach you.
All right. So Dave, I'm asking you. You got a rod there. You got a rail here. Give us a couple tips. Can you do that?
I prefer not to. We did have this. What a sweet deal that was when I was on Seeker's Pro staff.
Yeah.
We made the stern of a boat. We took it to the Fred Hall show. And it was perfect because it was up here and you could get a guy that was down here and we would give demonstrations on how to use the rail.
Right.
And it's just a little difficult to do in a situation. This is too low and
okay. Well, is there anything you could tell people though? Give them some advice. They're listening. They got you here. They want some advice on how to turn. There's guys out there that want to catch a 200-pounder in 10 minutes. What do they do?
You know, it's
Is there a special type of rod that you need to have? Something that has a grip that goes a little bit higher that can rest on the rail? Does that matter?
It doesn't really matter, but you'll wear out your rod and your windings if you don't.
Yeah,
you know, I started this thing of putting the cold shrink on the foregrip because I was wearing out the Hypalon in one trip. At that time, Martin Yoshida over at Yo's Custom Rods was putting this product called Cold Shrink on the unibutts and the bent butts so that they weren't so slippery and the crew handing them around the anchor. And I looked at that stuff and I said, I think I'm going to put it on the foregrip. And Martin says, why? And I said, because I'm tired of paying you to keep putting new Hypalon on. So I started doing it and it kind of became a fad. In answer to your question, I use the rail on a 9-foot rod. I mean, I have a 9-foot United Composites. It's a 90 Monster Mag. And all fish at Guadalupe and a twitchy bite with this 9-foot rod. I don't have a 100-pounder on it yet. I got one that was 97.
Jeez.
And I'll lay that 9-foot rod on the rail. And what a sweet bend it has.
Oh, I can imagine. It does, yeah. Well, if it's on the rail, it's not going to tear you up.
No,
right? Yeah.
no, exactly. But, you know, you just have to find what works comfortable for most. You know, like some guys want to sit on the rod butt. I don't. I like to put it under my armpit. And then just like when you either surf or you skateboard, you're either goofy foot or you're regular. And I don't know. It's not like you can train somebody to go the other way. You know, I like to have my rod butt under my right arm, and most people like it under their left arm.
Right.
Stas likes to put a leg up on the corner of the rail and rest the rod on his leg. So there's just tons of different ways to go about it, and just find what's comfortable for you. And that's where I could be of benefit to you if I was on a trip and you said, oh man, this hurts. This is not, well, let's try this. Oh, that feels much better that way. You know, there's so many different things. And also where in the water column the fish is. If the fish is way out there, I'll drop all the way down and put my knees on the deck and put the rod butts almost all the way on the deck. And that way I get a good bend out of the rod.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Steve, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we got a lot of questions coming in from our live viewers here. The first one's coming in from Sal Buchert. He's asking, what is Wahoo Dad's favorite long-range boat?
Oh, I'm going to get him in trouble, right? Our studio audience let out a gasp. Huge studio audience. Match float.
My favorite boat right now, and I'm on standby to go on this boat, is the American Angler.
The American Angler.
It's
why?
Service.
Uh-huh.
Those guys got it down. But, you know, I'm not saying that if you go on the Royal Polaris, you don't get good service. But I don't know. I feel so comfortable. The last trip I made on the American Angler, and I still like to be my own guy. I still like to, bring my own stuff up out of my room. And they said, Mr. Choate, which room are you in? And what is your cart number? And then they put all my stuff from my room in my cart and said, okay, and we'll help you push it up and, you know, bring it back down here so we can start loading fish. And I was like, wow.
Blown away, huh?
Yeah, I really like that boat. But, you know, I've been fishing a lot of trips on the XL in the last few years. I haven't been on the Royal Polaris in a long time, and there's no particular reason, but that is a fantastic rig to go on.
Absolutely, yeah.
The American Angler, they do a really good job on the RSW. You know, there's certain boats that got the RSW down just a tiny bit better than the other boats. And
how about the Intrepid? Do you ever fish that boat?
I have fished the Intrepid. It's a very good boat. They do a good job. It's comfortable.
There's a lot of, that long-range fleet in San Diego is so professional and so great. And the fact that you say you prefer the American Angler right now is not to denigrate any of the other boats. It's
absolutely
just
not
your favorite thing right now.
I've been
Your
on
answer,
every one of
honestly.
them. I've been on the Independence. What a fabulous!
Oh, that's right, the Independence.
What a fabulous ride that
You
is.
dummy, Steve. You should have mentioned that right away.
Mark and Paul. I mean, they do. You know.
Yeah, right.
So, find the boat that fits your schedule. Find the trip that fits your schedule, and give them a try. I had to try every single one. I've been on the Spirit of Adventure, Searcher. I got to admit, I'm looking at some of Art's fall trips to where 14 guys on the Searcher, everybody gets their own stateroom.
Wow, that sounds nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I got some buddies that go on that one, and it sounds pretty nice. They go over to Guadalupe and got your own room, and
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Leave it to Scott Bucher to ask a question to start this controversy, right? More questions?
Yeah, so Jeff Yeomans is asking, what advice do you have for a charter master who's trying to build a solid charter group?
Like Jeff Yeomans, Jeff does a great job. He's a super good guy, and I meet him. He charters me going, it seems like I'm coming in and he's going out, and he does a great job. So it's a good question.
Well, I jumped on an open party trip on the Amigo in the early summer this year, and I met some guys there, Phil Castillo and a couple other guys, and so I get their email address. You go on trips, you meet guys, you friend them on social media, and you start conversations. I just had a guy. Matt and I are going to go on a trip on the Pegasus. I had chartered it for 2.5 days in October.
By the way, I fished that boat with Joe Choate, and Joe's still part of it.
Joe is, yeah.
Oh, well, Matt, yeah. I mean, we fished on the Conquest with Joe, and then the Pegasus. That guy is freaking fishy.
Yeah, he is.
And if he's going to work with somebody, I don't know the kid who's running the boat now.
Jason Rombadas.
Can only guess he's just like Joe.
Oh, he's money. I mean, I love fishing with Jason. I've known Jason since he was a kid working on the Shogun.
Okay.
And he's a very good captain. He's very fishy. But
go ahead. Anyway,
I had a guy today that I met on the Pacific Queen, and we exchanged information on social media, and he said, "Hey, I saw that you have a trip on the Pegasus. I want to go." So, just like that, you just kind of build up the clientele. You go on an open party trip, and you maybe can pick 4 or 5 people that you really connect with. Right. And that way you could start building it out of people that you do connect with.
Yeah, and Jeff, I know what he's doing, and it's kind of what I try to do on our charters. You want people to feel part of the family. Like on an open party trip, sometimes you might have, like you said, 4 or 5 guys, and you're kind of in the groove with those guys, and you feel good, but some people are not part of that. And when they walk on your charter, I'm sure you do it, Jeff does it, I try to do it, we're all friends. You need something, just ask, and it becomes this communal great experience.
There's something I haven't run charters in a long time, and I always hate collecting money, and it's why I quit contracting too. But there's something that I do. I like to get name tags. So I'll put
idea.
a name tag on here. I'll put a name tag on Matt. I'll put a name tag on Phil. You know what else I do? I put another name tag with their name on their back shoulder. Because the crew is going to be looking, and they're going to go, "Hey, Phil, move to your right, step right. Do the tuna shuffle." Yeah. So I like to, because I want the crew to get to know the guys too. Because it's like, okay, we're on a family. Yeah. I fish with a guy. I'm on some of his charters, Big Rich, and he, at the end of the trip, he has us all kind of stand around and talk, and we say, "Hey, maybe you haven't met the guy next to you. If not, then shake his hand, shake hands with the guy to the right of you, and that way, you know their name for
Makes
the
a big
next trip."
difference, right?
Yeah.
It totally does. Any more, Steve?
Yeah, we got a lot more coming in.
Oh, my God. You are popular, Dave.
Mikey V is asking, he's curious to hear about what is one of your most memorable or difficult battles at the rail.
Good question, Mikey. Hope you're doing good on the East Coast, my friend.
So we're on the lower banks on the Intrepid, and there's big ones blowing out, big ones. And
300 pounders.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
These are big fish, and so I wing a bait out there. I run up to the bow, even though we're on the anchor. I run up to the bow. I always trying something different. I get bit. I'm running out of line.
Oh, God.
Hey, I'm running out of line. Oh, get the backup. So they get the backup rod. They attach another rod to the clips on my rod and reel, and they throw my rod and reel in the water. Now I'm fighting it on the backup rod. So I'm gaining, and I get my rod back in my hand, and I'm going, all right, I got a shot at this one. And I go around the boat 3 or 4 times. He takes off again. Get the backup. Splash, throw my rod and reel in the water.
Oh, God.
I'm running out of line on the backup.
No way.
Hook a backup to the backup.
Oh, my God.
Throw that one in the water.
How cool.
I'm running out of line.
On the third?
So they said, this is the last one we have.
We've got $8,000 worth of gear in the water.
I'm looking at the Red Rooster, and he's about 1.5 miles below us. And I said, somebody call him on the radio and watch out. Don't let him burn me off.
Have him gaff my fish.
So I'm on this thing for 3.5 hours, and I get chewed off.
Oh.
So I was mad. They didn't have a skiff on the boat. A lot of the boats don't have skiffs anymore. I was certain it was my first encounter with a 400-pounder. I'm winding. I don't know whether to cry. I don't know whether to pout. I don't know whether to go punch somebody. I just keep winding rigs in and undoing them. And finally I get my rod, and I go put my rod in the rack, and I said, just grab another rod. I throw a bait in the water. It's not in the water 20 seconds. I get bit again. And I am mad now because I just lost this big fish.
Yeah.
And so I am down on one knee, and I'm really putting the wood to this fish. And the crew member, the second ticket, goes, it's a pretty good one. You know, maybe you want to back off on it. I don't care. I was mad, you know.
Right?
So
yeah.
they gaff it. They got to open the gate. 3:16.
Ooh.
And I got him in about 15 minutes.
Really?
There was just so much energy in me.
You were just focused on pulling. And
Yeah.
You know, Matt said that on the way here, that you fight a fish to catch it, not to lose it. And so is that what you're talking about there?
Yeah.
Plus you were pissed.
Yeah. You know, I do a lot of things to increase my luck. Like, say I'm fishing with this rig right here, and I catch one about 140-pounder. I change my top shot. What if I hooked that one with the 3 backups, and I'd go, man, I really wish I would have changed my top shot.
Yeah, because you can't go backwards and do it, can
No.
you? Yeah, exactly.
I throw on big yellowfin tuna. I throw my hook away. I just, you know, that hook served its purpose. Splash.
New hook.
I don't want to be tempted.
You fishing circle hooks when you're fishing?
I fish circle hooks.
Okay.
I learned how to fish circle hooks.
Yeah.
That was a difficult.
Ringed or not ringed?
I'm a ringed guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
You fish those Charlie Brown
I
hooks?
do fish Charlie Brown.
You do?
I love Charlie Brown.
Oh, Steve's laughing. I'm in on all this, right, Steve? You didn't
Have
know.
you seen these things?
No, wow, I like that.
It's got a little flat spot that
Oh,
the
wait, I
ring.
have seen that. Steve uses those for earrings once in a while, don't you? Yeah.
Nose rings.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody from the East Coast told me about these Charlie Brown hooks.
Yeah.
And
where do you get them? Everywhere?
Get them from Choate Tackle. I think a few of the stores have them now.
Mm-hmm.
I order them from John Napo at Trophy Tackle.
You're sold on them, it sounds like.
Oh,
So,
that's all I fish.
Explain those to us. What is so special about those hooks?
It's a really light hook, so my sardine can swim better. It's a ringed hook. I like ringed hooks. I feel my sardine swims better. I see a lot of people that don't use ringed hooks, and they do fine. It's a confidence thing with me.
Yeah. Light yet super strong, I'm guessing,
We
right?
got to do another fish story here.
All right, cool.
This is me and my son Ben. We went out with Danny Osuna on the No Tuna No Chinga in April.
No tuna, no chinga.
No tuna,
I like
no
that.
chinga. with
that's true,
Pat
actually,
Conklin.
right?
I don't know if you remember Pat Conklin.
Come on,
Pat,
I love Pat and his brother Mike. Did
and
you
his
know
brother
Mike?
Mike was on the trip.
I hope those guys are listening because I love those two
And
guys.
so they each caught a cow on the kite that day, but Ben and I, we were fly lining baits. And my son has really worked hard to become the fisherman that he is. He worked past the seasickness. It went from a dad hooking and handing to a dad hooking the bait on and casting it out to a son doing it all by himself.
Awesome.
And you know, you have limited number of Cavallito down in Puerto Vallarta.
Right.
So
You got to make them count.
you got to make them count. And I'd fly lined a lot of Cavallitos this day. This was our first day of fishing. I said, I'm not going to fish anymore. Ben goes, I'm going to fish one more bait, Dad. Okay, go ahead. So he grabs his 2-0 Charlie Brown hook and puts it in a Cavallito, 80-pound test, fluorocarbon, and says, Dad, I'm bit. I mean, you just threw it in the water, son. He says, I'm bit. And so okay, all right. And make sure he knows how to, he's never caught a big fish before. His biggest fish is a 100-pound bluefin. So here he is, and he's doing a great job, and he works his way around to the stern corner. And I was like, okay, the crew's got him now. I'm going to go grab a rig. So I grabbed my Deviant and my 20, and I have a 100-pound test, but I have a 2-0 Charlie Brown hook. A 2-0 Charlie Brown hook. Ben's fish ended up weighing 223. Mine was 277.
Wow. Nice. Father and son.
I'm telling you, Charlie Brown hooks are the real deal.
Yeah.
I just landed my fish. I had to push it all the way to full, and the crew went, whoa, he went to full. I couldn't gain on him and get those last few feet, so I went to full, got my fish, and I just ran back to Coach Ben. And the crew said, hey, we checked your drag at where you were when you landed that fish. 47 pounds of drag.
Wow.
With a 2-0 hook. So I am a big believer.
You're sold. And this was Puerto Vallarta?
Puerto Vallarta.
How do you like fishing down there?
I love it down there. Yeah. You get 3 full days of fishing. You're gone for 5 days. You fly down. You get on the boat. You're on the boat. They have already got the bait loaded on, and you go to the Tres Marias and fish around there, and 3 full days.
Accommodations, food. This is the no tuna, no chinga?
No tuna, no chinga.
Yeah.
Everything's covered there. Your vacuum sealing. You can bring 50 pounds of fish home and in a soft cooler. Your beer, your soda, all your meals, everything's all inclusive.
Okay, and how much is it?
It was last year was $22.50.
Okay, great. That sounds like a wonderful
it's a
trip.
good deal.
How many guys are on the boat?
6.
Uh-huh. Wow, that sounds like fun. Have you done that, Matt?
I'm not, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. And how's the crew and everybody?
Oh, the crew is
Super?
Fabulous.
Do you get any home-cooked Mexican food?
You get
See
a
what
lot,
I'm asking?
You get a lot of Mexican food.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Go ahead,
We
Steve.
got more questions coming in. Alfredo's asking, with all the long-range boats you fish, do you still fish local islands like Catalina or the Coronados on full day trips?
I do. I try to get down and fish on a trip or two a year on the San Diego, a trip or two a year on the Grande.
I saw you here on the Freedom.
I go on the Freedom.
Yeah.
I go on the Amigo. I go on the Monte Carlo.
I was just there the other day. I had a great day.
I go on like a Sunday morning, and I jump on with Morgan on the Redondo Special.
There you go.
Just a half-day trip.
You love fishing, don't
I
you?
love fishing.
Yeah.
I love fishing. I'm going on Sunday night on the Pescador for lobsters.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, and because people are listening to these stories about these giant tuna that you're catching, and they probably think to themselves, oh, well, he's not going to be on a half-day boat. But you absolutely are, because you love being on the ocean.
My second favorite fish to catch is calico bass.
There you go.
It's not Wahoo. I don't know why I did the
Wahoo
moniker
Dad.
Wahoo Dad.
That's actually one of the next questions from Scott, how he got the name Wahoo Dad.
That's an excellent question, Scott. Very good.
So it was back in the days of AOL and wee woo wee woo.
Yep.
when you're signing
We're
on.
dating ourselves like, Steve, you don't even know, do you? Or,
He's going,
no,
what?
yeah, he doesn't know.
So
be
and I
90
was
years
going
old.
for a screen name, and at that time I was really into catching wahoo. I had just begun fishing long range, and I was really into catching wahoo. So I tried for Wahoo King. It was taken, all these different names with wahoo, and they
You
were
should
all
have
taken.
tried no wahoo, no
and I said,
chinga.
well, I like catching wahoo, and I'm a dad.
There you go.
My family is so important to me, and Wahoo Dad, and it said, yeah, AOL said I could have it, so there you go. Nice. I wish I was Moo Dad now, though.
Yeah, really, right?
Tim is asking, what is your opinion on what happened on the Shogun? Do you guys know anything about that?
He's probably making reference, he's making reference to the drug situation, I think, probably.
I happen to be...
I'm guessing, right, Tim? Yeah.
I happened to be down there that day. I was getting on the Islander that day when all that went down, and my heart goes out to those guys. But
yeah, thank God everyone survived. Number one, right?
I'm a recovering drug addict, so my heart goes out to those guys. I quit fishing. Like the guys that I grew up with, they pretty much didn't want much to do with me anymore. Crystal meth and cocaine took me down to my knees. And sometimes you just think that that's what you need to get through the next trip.
Yeah.
We did it on boats for years, and now they have drug testing, and I'm glad they do. But, it was just a sad deal. Somebody brought something down, and it had an additive in it that we've come to know is very deadly. And I'm lucky that I feel very fortunate that none of those guys died.
Well, since we're talking about it, we're not going to hide that. What happened was, I think, three guys actually passed out?
I think it was four guys.
Four guys
and they were doing the turnaround, and they were, one of the people on the next trip had brought some down. And so, the guys were tired, and you just need a little bump. And so they went down to do a little bump, and they, everybody thinks they're downstairs putting groceries away, and and all of a sudden, luckily, somebody went down there and go, "Hey, we got a problem here."
Yeah. And but when you say they need a little bump, you're not endorsing that. I want to make that clear to everybody because as a recovering addict,
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought I needed a bump a lot of times.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, thank God nobody died and it was taken care of.
Yeah, and as far as I know, everybody kind of cleaned their act up. And, yeah.
Yep.
It's a great rig to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I wouldn't hesitate to go on the Shogun.
Yeah.
Rocket Dog is asking, what are your thoughts on the future of long-range fishing?
Right now, I don't really know. I mean, this whole carb thing, this whole emissions of the boats. And I ask all my fellow fishermen, make sure your voice is heard. Like everyone in my family knows how much I love fishing, and they all signed the petition.
Yes.
And CCA, I know they're doing everything they can to help us. But even the Department of Fish and Wildlife told that this bill is it's crazy.
So the carb thing, so everybody out there knows, is a possibility that boats are going to have to switch to these top tier type engines that
don't even exist.
Don't exist, number one, and would put everybody out of business if they did. And so there's that whole thing. And Steve, you need to remind me, and I'm glad you brought this up. I'm neighbors with a politician who could help us in this whole thing, so I need to talk to her.
Okay. And
I mentioned that to Mark and Paul, and they told me to do it, so I'll do that here tomorrow. I'm glad you mentioned that, but yeah, that's a scary thing. And the whole Mexico United States thing really isn't an issue. I don't think. I think that's gonna go on. That is not gonna be the problem. But this carb thing could potentially, and not only for the long range boats, but all these guys, whale watch guys,
whale watch,
yeah,
Catalina Flyer,
and Dave, that's going to hurt the less affluent. I mean, there's some affluent guys with money who go on the sport boats too, but the people that can't afford to have their own private boat, who depend on the Monte Carlo to get their kids out into the ocean's environment and see all the beauty that the sea has to offer, it's going to really hurt them. It's regressive. It hurts the little guy. And so I hope that we can do something there for sure.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I get the AAA magazine every month, and they list the new laws that are going to be taking place. And I saw one of the laws that they put in there said that we're all going to be driving electric cars by 2030, and it's like, this is crazy. I just, they want everything to have zero emissions, and I'm sorry. I'm sure everybody's working on it to the best of their ability, but let's not hurt sport fishing. There's fish processors. There's tackle stores. I mean, a lot will be impacted.
Sure,
by
fuel dogs,
yeah.
the grocery store, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going into the political realm now, Steve. Look out.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I don't care. We'll take anything. Do you have another question?
Yeah. So next question is from Brett Enter. Every good fisherman, Dan Hernandez, Dave Hansen, all say their favorite fish to catch are calico bass. Why is calico one of your favorite fish?
Excellent question.
I guess it's just what I cut my teeth on. I was a pinhead on the Pursuit out of Redondo, and they taught me how to fish. Frank Grace, Gary LaCroix, John Gray, XL.
That XL, he's something else, let me tell you.
And it's just, back in the day, we would fish a green bomber and a live squid.
White bomber, too.
Yeah, white bombers, and it's just a lead head with a bucktail on it. But, we would fish it with squid, and when the rod loads up and you swing, and it just
it's
stops.
Great, right? Yeah.
And it's just
in those days, you could have taken a can opener with a hook on it and tossed it out and caught fish. That was so freaking ridiculous. And those Sargo, big calico bass, every bait on that bomber and squid, man. That was fun. And all those guys, Frank Grace and Gary LaCroix and XL, and who else you mentioned?
John Gray.
John Gray. Great guys, we all grew up with those. You and I grew up with those guys.
I did.
Yeah,
I did. Those guys.
That's when Redondo was the epicenter of sport fishing, almost.
It was
big.
It was a big deal then.
Yeah.
We had 2 overnight boats then.
Pursuit, Real Special.
Right.
Homer Lightfoot, Gary Implum.
Yeah.
Great days, huh?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. More questions?
A couple more here. Let's see here. Sorry, I lost my place. Jeff is asking, when you're fishing for calicos, do you prefer artificials or bait?
I'm a bait guy. I love fishing them with squid. I'm not good at the plastics.
Do you fish them in gear on squid?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you do, right?
Yeah.
So you just peck,
loads up. Loads up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of guys don't fish them in gear. They let them,
Yeah.
I fish them in gear, too.
I learned from Norm Kagawa. He passed away this year.
God, I know. Poor.
Yeah, but on the Shogun, when he would bring the Shogun up here to San Pedro.
Yeah.
And he was good at it. He would fish an iron jig, something like a Tatty 4.0 or something like that, and wrap a squid around it and fish it in gear. Oh,
Norm, I met him when he was decking on the Searcher with Leroy.
Oh.
Leroy and I are still always communicating. I was so sad to hear that Norm passed away, but I remember driving by a kelp patty once, and Norm said, "Throw an iron. We're going home." And he goes, "Toss an iron on that." And I go, "Well, I'm going to end up getting spooled." And he goes, "It's going to be so much fun." And I didn't do it that time, but I thought about it. And, he was right, because you could see some shiners on that kelp. And we were straight lining for home. We were late, fishing albacore at 100 miles. And, Norm was a sweetheart. And Leroy, mi hermano in Hawaii, I talk to him all the time. So it's good memories for me. Steve.
Mike Morrison is tuning in. He
Mike
says,
Morrison!
That's right.
The manager of 22nd Street Landing.
He said, everything looks great with the TV in the background, and Phil just needs a facelift.
I'm working on it. When we make a little bit more money, Mike, that's the first thing we're going to do.
And then David Maestro is saying, is the Makaira 10 your favorite 40 to 50 pound test reel, or is the 15T?
Oh, the 10. The 10 definitely works really well for 40 and 50. I use the 15 tall for 60, and even go up to 80-pound test on that reel. The 15 tall is a great reel for going to Guadalupe. Because I know I could probably land a cow on it. I know I can land a fish over 150 pounds on that.
Perfect.
Rig. Yeah.
Tony Gonzalez is out front, by the way, and I was supposed to mention him.
That's
So,
right.
Tony, thank you for staying late for us tonight. Steve, another question.
Last question for now. Kurt Schuster is saying, going on a 15-day on the Rooster in May, what rigs would you recommend?
Great question, Kurt. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time, but please go into all the detail you want. I
take about 10 or 12 rods when I go. I have like a 30-pound outfit for live bait wahoo. Sometimes the wahoo don't want to bite a jig or a bomb, and they'll go on a live bait. So fish them light, 25-pound wire, 30-pound wire, and 30-pound test mono. So you have that rig there for you. 40-pound tests, you don't use too much of that. So if I had to, I could take one of my 50-pound rigs and scale it down. But I'll have 2 casting rigs for wahoo with 50-pound test, and I have one with a jig on it, no wire, and one with a bomb on it. And instead of using wire, I'll use 100 to 130-pound test fluorocarbon. You get a higher percentage of hookups using a bomb as opposed to using a jig. A wahoo comes up and grabs the jig. When you're winding a jig real fast, a wahoo grabs it like this, and as long as you just keep wind, they end up getting the business end into their mouth. The hooks hook them up. But when they grab a bomb, they already got the hook in their mouth. They grab that bomb, and so you have such a much higher ratio. So I'm a tuna guy. I love tuna. I really love catching bluefin, yellowfin, albacore. So I'll have an 80-pound outfit for fly line sardines. I'll have 3 100-pound outfits, and they're basically all the same rig. There's a 20 size Macaira with a 100-pound test. I fish my reels really full of spectra. They are extremely filled to the top. You can get 825 yards of 100-pound tests.
Is that what you fish, 100-pound?
I fish 100-pound.
Yeah.
And you know what? I could fish this rig, and I could change it out if they're really biting. I could change the top shot, and I could go up to 150-pound test.
Yeah.
And I've never had the spectra give me an issue. It just doesn't work that way. It's always going to break over at the hook. And so if I need a heavier leader because they're really biting or it's getting dark. So the rule of thumb is I'll start off in the morning and fishing in the dark. And as soon as I can fly line a bait, as soon as there's enough light that my sardine will start swimming away, I'm fishing a sardine on the fly line. Prior to that, maybe you got to have one with a rubber band and a torpedo sinker like we're doing for the bluefin. And now this same exact rig right here, Gary LaCroix and I were talking. Gary used to fish on the Royal Polaris one trip every year.
And Gary has a highliner out of Redondo.
He has a highliner out of Redondo. And Gary says, why aren't we using a sardine size hook and fishing a chunk? And I said, I am. And
one of your nicknames was the Chunk Master, right?
Yeah, I fished chunks for a long time.
Yeah.
And we used to think chunk fish are stupid. They're not. You might have to scale it down. You might have to drop down to 80-pound test and a small hook and do your darndest to hide the chunk, to hide your hook in the chunk. Maybe detail it out. Maybe you cut a little slice in the skin portion of the chunk and slide the hook in, double it back around to where the tuna can see no hook.
Right, and so for people who don't know, a chunk is a chunk of
Just
whatever fish, right?
Yeah.
Tuna or whatever.
Tuna or whatever. I mean, we've chunked up sharks when we're hurting for chunk material.
And did that work?
Yes.
I'll bet. Yeah,
Yeah,
why not? It's so weird because there's so much emphasis on make sure you choose a really good hot bait and you take your time, and then you're taking a piece of chunk and tossing it out there and catching fish. It's kind of counterintuitive in a way, but it sure works. Is that still a thing? I mean,
yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You don't hear as much about it as you used to.
We started going back to Guadalupe. We got permits to start going back to Guadalupe. And there's a lot of sharks over at Guadalupe. So there's nobody throwing a chunk line.
Okay. That makes sense.
But we're talking about the chunk master here.
Right.
So they gutting and gilling the fish, and I look at the heart. Now I'm giving a secret out.
All right. Here we go. Finally.
Secret. So I grab the heart, and it's really easy to hide the hook in a heart. So I grab it's not even 10 feet from the boat, and I'm bit. There's 0 chunks being thrown in the water.
The heart?
The heart
is super effective, it sounds like. Gotta have heart.
So I have a question. Is there any benefit? I know it really depends on how finicky the fish are. Maybe you chunk fish or maybe you bait fish. But if the fish is, let's say, engulfing a chunk bait, I would imagine that the hook gets swallowed and maybe you're able to, I would assume you land the fish a little bit quick. You want to land the fish a little bit quicker because then that line is in the fish, or the hook is in the fish's belly, and it's potentially can get cut off from the line rubbing back and forth on the teeth. Is there any benefit to fishing chunk or versus fishing bait?
Is that true with a circle hook that it ends up in the gullet like that, or does it end up
very rarely?
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking.
Okay. Here's another top secret.
All right.
I learned this on the XL. You spend thousands of dollars to learn these lessons, but
and people are getting them for free thanks to Friedman Adventures.
Here we were on the XL, and Justin Fleck has given the seminar on the way down, and he says he says, and he's looking right at me. So I know he's talking to me.
He's looking.
I mean, he's just. So here's how we set the hook. He might as well have said, here's how we set the hook, Choate. So I get a bite, and I don't be in too big of a hurry.
Yeah.
I used to think, well, he doesn't have hands, so it's got to be in his mouth.
Yeah.
And so I'd go all the way to strike. Not anymore. I very slowly push the lever up. Very slowly push the lever up. And I don't even go all the way to the strike button. And every time in the corner.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not pulling any hooks. Ever since I've gone to the Justin Fleck method of hooking them.
What a great tip.
You
eventually end up in the strike?
He says circle hooks were designed with long liners in mind. Mm-hmm. And you know how long lines are? There's a line like this, and there's just this leader material hanging down. And the fish comes along and bites it. There's no angler on the other end reeling down, setting a hook or anything like that. All of a sudden, the fish goes like, right. You got him.
Great tip.
Got more questions coming in here.
Oh, my God. I can't even get a question in tonight.
Tim is asking, do you have a handful of knots that you would recommend for connection knots and actual hook knots?
Good question, Tim.
If I'm on my lighter outfits and I'm connecting my Spectra to my fluorocarbon or my mono, I use what's either the Bob Sands knot or the Tony Pena knot. And there's a reason. I worked on the Intrepid, and we would have a lot of loner outfit. We had a lot of novice anglers come on the Intrepid because they didn't have that big of a following when I was working on there. So us crew members, we were making up 4 or 5 rigs for each passenger. And sometimes 15 people might need these 4 or 5 rigs.
Yeah.
I never had any of my connections fail with that Tony Pena or Bob Sands knot.
So that's your favorite.
So that's it.
Your go-to.
Now, if it's me and I'm pre-making my leaders at home like I like to do, once I go from about 40-pound test up, I go with Sato crimps. You know, there's these FG knots and there's all these. I just feel like I need maybe a 3rd or a 4th arm or something like that to tie that knot.
Yeah.
I can't get the hang of it.
Yeah.
So, but my Sato crimps work fine for that. Down on the business end of the hook, I use this. Tony Garza taught me this knot. It's like a derivative of the Miller knot. And
Tony Garza is super nice guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. I
Yeah.
was on his pro staff with Soft Steel before he sold Soft Steel to Okuma. So, and it works. But what I go back to Justin Fleck. Justin Fleck taught me how to tie like a reverse trilene, and it's a real low profile knot. And that's what I tie for big fish. San Diego knot and double San Diego, great knot. It's kind of big. So I like these lower profile knots.
Excellent.
Great. Scott's asking, have you ever fished on the Mission Bell with Captain Sean?
I have not. I fished on the Mission Bell with David Aikida, but that's dating myself.
Well, let me make a comment about Captain Sean. Sean Hardigan, great guy, super good fisherman, works hard. Those guys on those frickin' full day trips out of San Diego, they're sometimes, man, they're putting in big, long days and catching bluefin and catching all kinds of great fish. And Sean is a great fisherman, and I have to mention his girlfriend, Mimi. She's great also. She's a lot of fun. She actually was a deckhand on the Malahini on a trip we had this year, and she was fabulous with as a crew member and with the passengers. Everybody loved her. So, yeah, Mission Bell and Sean Hardigan, great, 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 Scott.
And then we got Dino Ricchetti is asking, are there any star drag reels in your arsenal, and what is your favorite?
I just have one star drag reel and right now in my arsenal, and it's actually 2. I lied. They're both Okuma. The one that I use for yo-yo yellowtail / Wahoo, it's called a Tesoro, and it's right along the lines of Shimano's Trinidad Torium kind of line, gear ratio and everything about it. I was in on the testing of it. They don't really call us pro staffers with Okuma. They call us product testers. Pretty cool thing about it, they send me the reels and they ask me to fill out a report, and now it's all online. They give me a form and it's on my desktop of my computer, and so I just fill it out. They never asked for the reels back.
Oh,
so.
nice.
Like
Send
it.
another one over. I'll do another report for you.
And the other one is, and this one is a bulletproof little reel. It's called the Cortez.
Oh, yeah.
Okuma Cortez. And
it's a popular one.
if somebody was going to, like when Tucker bought the landing up north there, and he was asking me, what should I put? And I think he ended up going with Daiwa. But I said, man, you can't go wrong if you were to go with Okuma Cortez. They're bulletproof. We get them serviced every 3 or 4 years, whether they need it or not.
Before Steve asked the next question, we were talking about chunking. Matt told me a funny story on the way over. He was on, what boat was that you were on?
Polaris Supreme.
When the galley cook told you to fish out? So he's on the Polaris Supreme. He's walking by the galley, and there's a Wahoo bite going on, and he goes, hey, the galley guy says to Schlurf, are you looking to catch a Wahoo? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, we'll fish right outside my window here. And he goes, why? And so the cook had been prepping, and he's throwing carrot, some of the carrot parts that and the friggin' Wahoo are there eating the carrots. So he dumps the bait in the water right there, and he's on. So, I mean, sometimes you can overthink this, they're eating friggin' carrots. And that just cracked me up. Steve?
And since you're talking about chunk fishing, Jeff Yeomans is asking if you could please explain chunk fishing in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I did so much chunk fishing.
The chunk master.
I found that you need to fish them on a fairly slack line. What you want to do is you want to make your chunk look exactly like the chum chunks that are floating through the water column. But the thing is, yours has a piece of line attached to it.
Right.
So it's going to act different. So the more slack you can put in there, I got a little story about that. I ended up getting an infection on the Intrepid, and they almost had to airlift me off the boat.
What kind of infection?
I got MRSA.
Oh, wow.
I from kneeling on the deck, and I got some fish slime in my cut on my knee.
Yeah.
And they almost had to. And so I spent most of the trip down in my room. They gave me a green light. They said I could fish the last day. So I got up, and I'm kind of looking around. And Romo was on the bait tank, and I was watching him. And he's throwing a sardine, and he's dropping a chunk into the bait tank overflow. You throw a sardine, throw a chunk in, which is going right into the chunk line.
Yeah, right.
And I said, "How long you been doing that?" And he said, "About 45 minutes." I said, "And not a single one of these guys is fishing a chunk?" And he says, "Nope." So I go over and grab a chunk, pin it on, hide the hook, drop it in the water, try to get a bunch of slack in the water. And it's not like any blinding strike or anything like that. My line just did a little tick, kind of like a largemouth bass eating a plastic worm. And I said, And so I just backpedaled the spool a little bit, and it was there. And that to this day still stands. That's my personal best, 350 pounds.
Oh, my God. Wow.
So, there's been a few trips where you let your chunk get way out behind the boat. But for the most part, you want to fish your chunk right in the 50, 60-pound range. A lot of times, back when we were fishing the Revillas, and we had to deal with sharks. So I was...
Brown sharks, right?
Yeah, Galapagos browns.
Yeah.
And so you'd be chunking. So I was, in my head, I was always counting. I'm at 70 pulls. Got a shark. So the next time, I'm fishing 60 pulls. So, that's a trick that you can use if you get too many of undesirable species. Keep track of how far you're going, because the tuna are going to bite it pretty close to the boat.
Good to know. And then Raspberry Roach is saying, what are the go-to rods for Guadalupe? He's doing a trip this year. He usually fishes Seeker.
I was on Seeker's Pro Staff for a long time. They make great rods. I would have a 6470 and a 6480. At least those two rods right there for 40 and 50 pound tests. And maybe have one with an H on it, 6470H for your rods. And then you're probably going to need a heavier rod. Let me see. Well, it's been a while. 6465XH, something along that line. Or 6470XH. And something like that, and for your 60 or 80 pound rig.
Awesome. Okay, great. And then next question is, where can someone go to look up some of the knots that you mentioned earlier? Is YouTube a good resource? What are some other good resources? I know some tackle stores sell some of those books where you can, they explain how to tie those knots.
They might have them out here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do.
I don't really know.
Google that or YouTube. I'm sure. I mean, you can find anything on YouTube, it seems like.
You could probably Google the Justin Fleck method of tying the trilene.
Yeah.
So I'll bet you somebody has put it up on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be putting that up. Steve?
Yeah.
Oh, does it? Royal Polaris website has it.
And then last question for now, does David have a dedicated surface iron setup? This is from Jeff Yeomans.
Yeah.
Do you have a dedicated surface iron setup? If so, what do you use for your irons?
I have what is that? That's a Cortez. I have a wide Cortez. I think it's Okuma Cortez 10 or 12. And I fish 40 and 50 pound tests on mine, and right now, I don't know what to call it, because I guess the name that it was when I bought it was kind of it's a United Composites Reaper, but I guess they found out they couldn't really use that name.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what it's called now. Do you know what it's called? But it's a 9-foot rod.
Okay, you can describe it, right? 9
Yeah,
foot.
it's a 9-foot rod, rated for 40, 50-pound test.
Yeah, Jeff loves 10-foot rods and loves to throw the iron, man. That's what he's all about. It's great stuff.
When the trip I was on, the Amigo with Phil Castillo, he put on a clinic on that 2-day trip.
Oh, yeah?
Oh my God, he was really good at it. And
Awesome.
I was like, I want to learn this. And
Yeah.
there's Mike Pritchard on the tribute.
Yeah.
I worked some trips this year on the tribute. In between being a framer and being a superintendent, I had a little bit of time off, and I worked a little stretch on the tribute. And we were out at Cortez and Tanner, and Mike Pritchard was very good at the surface iron.
That's
and
great.
handing them off.
Anything over there more, I think? No? So, we've talked a lot about Wahoo and fishing the bomb. Have you ever witnessed any crazy Wahoo stuff? Fish going through the galley window, or a guy lifts his bomb up and it comes chasing him. You ever seen anything like that?
Absolutely.
Let's hear it.
I've seen some stuff. There was a trip where I would only fish next to one other guy because I knew that he knew how crazy it was. And we were fish on the XL, and we would just kind of get by. Our jigs stopped 10 or 12 feet from the boat, and even then, they were coming out of the water and running into the rub rail. I mean, they were so much. It was like one of the last years that we could fish at Clarion, and it was just crazy. But I was on the Red Rooster. John Grabowski was running the boat, and there was a guy, Archie Irons, and he was winding in his Marauder and trying to get out of was fishing a slide, and this guy next to him wound his Marauder in really fast and lifted it out of the water. Well, this Wahoo came out of the water, and luckily the Wahoo had his mouth closed. Normally when they come, they have their mouth. He had his mouth closed, and he hit Archie Irons right here in his hip, and it hit him so hard that it split him open on the hip bone.
Oh, my God.
And he was bleeding, but he wasn't bleeding as bad as he would have been.
If those teeth would have
Yeah,
sunk in.
yeah. So, you just really have to be careful. I know Tim Tourist told me that Dennis Braid had a similar experience on a trip that Tim was on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're crazy fish.
Oh, they are, I know.
They're so exciting.
Who was it that was here and talked about fish going through the galley window? Mike Folks, I think, maybe. Was he talking about it? Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing stuff. They are so speedy. You hook one of those things, and all of a sudden, your fish is like, you think it's up there in the bow, but it's already screamed back toward the stern.
I always had this thing on the XL, and I'd get my new little bunch of Okuma reels to try out, and I always want to get one on a level wind, and a bait, 15-pound test, 20-pound test, and every time Justin would be up there and he's manning the kites, and he said, "Choate, you cut my anchor off, and you're buying me a new one." I mean, that's like $1,200 or something like that. And what he's saying is, it's exactly true, because like a lighter line like that, they take off so rapidly, and
it'll saw right through the anchor line.
Saw right through the anchor line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing, right?
Yeah,
How
just
fast
big,
they are.
thick Samson braid, and it just burns right through it like your weed whacker on the weekend.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Nope. Back to our trip down there on the Royal Star in Panama. That was such an exceptional trip, but I don't know if you remember this part of the trip. It's indelibly etched in my mind. Your giant amberjack. Yeah, that was a great memory. Wide open snapper great. But I walked up in the wheelhouse. Tim Ekstrom had the glasses, and he's going, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, "Oh shoot, wow, You remember that like floating barge? And it had like all these freaking Panamanian girls in bikinis, and all these guys that are fishing with these girls. I'm sure these guys said, "Hey, to their wives, we're going on a fishing trip to Oh my God! I go, "Are we going to go get a little closer?" And he's, "Well, hell yes, we're going to get a little closer." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
There was nothing that bad. I mean, that's it. That's the end of the story, I think, right? Unless you saw something I didn't see.
There were only 2 guys that went in the skiff and went over on the barge.
Oh, I forgot it. Well, was it me? Oh,
No.
thank you.
It was me.
Oh. Oh. Well, let's hear the insights. I don't remember that.
So
why didn't you invite me?
It was myself and Tim Ekstrom. And we went in the skiff and we went. And there was a reason I think that Tim picked me, because he knew that I was sober and he knew that I wouldn't do something stupid.
And he knew you wouldn't mention this in public ever again also.
Well, I mean, we just went to see what it was. And so they welcomed us on.
Was it a discotheque kind of a thing going on, or what was going on over there?
It was a whorehouse. It was a whorehouse. And then when we got back to the boat, I mean, neither Tim nor I partook.
I didn't even know all this.
There was a bar, and there were girls, and they started coming up and talking to us, and we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
We were. That's a God honest truth.
No chinga, no tuna.
No,
tuna,
no. I'm not going to get Tim in trouble on this. No.
All right, yes. You were just doing a safety
And that's
check.
the reason that the two of it. And, he said.
I think I'm going to regret bringing this up.
Tim says, "You see the reason that I didn't bring some of my crew, David?"
Never get them back, right? That'd be it.
But it was some southern guy, some from Louisiana or something like that, and he got this like barge style riverboat, and he had a bunch of girls, and there were guys that come onto the boat.
Yeah,
and
we all know, yeah.
And do a little gambling, do a little drinking.
I thought I had the inside story on this, and you were going to say, like, well, no, I don't remember that. You really experienced this more than me. I'm starting to think, boy, was I? I don't remember doing that. Thank God I got out of that one.
Yeah.
Yes, the question.
Yeah, one new question.
This guy wants to know how to charter that.
I don't
what the
know.
price is?
David Maestro is asking if David fishes the kite or balloon, does he prefer 100-pound solid or would he use hollow?
Good question, David. And I hope I see you on one of our trips this year.
I fish hollow most of the time, and on a balloon it doesn't matter. But I'll say this, that there is some, Gary LaCroix and I have talked at length about sometimes in a scratch fly line bite about solid getting bit better than hollow. So I do have one rig that I have filled with solid, and I fish it just seems to go through the water easier, and any advantage you can get over getting a bite, sometimes there's been a lot of times in my long range career where big fish fishing where I haven't had a bite in 3 days.
Really?
3 full days.
And you're working at it?
0 bites, and it's at the rail pounding it all day
And
long.
other people are getting bit, or it's just a tough bite?
Sometimes other people are getting bit,
Yeah.
and it's just not my turn.
I understand.
And then like the 4th day, I'll be on fire, and I'll get 5 of them. So
that's
don't
amazing.
give up.
Right.
Just keep doing the right thing. I never scale my tackle down. A lot of times, if I can't get a bite on like 80-pound test, I may jump up to 130.
Really?
Yeah, and it's worked a lot.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. If you see other guys getting bit, do you start watching to see what they're doing? Are you still open to that? Because you're pretty knowledgeable, so
I'm always watching the other guys.
Yeah, right.
I know if you're belly hooking, I know if you're nose hooking, I know if you're shoulder hooking. I'm shoulder hooking all the time, but yeah, I know where I know which guy's got a sinker on. I know.
So if he gets bit, you're running over to get a sinker on or whatever, right?
No, I hate fishing a sinker, but it's in here.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I have a question. So for the local guys that are fishing the islands here, what is something that you've noticed that beginners or even guys that fish often are doing wrong or could improve their bite ratio if they change? Like, what is a common problem that they're making that's causing them to lose fish or maybe not even get a bite when they're out at Catalina, San Clemente, whatever?
I got a really good one for you. I went on the Grande early in the summer, and And the crew member we're going to fish bluefin for the day. You know, they're in that zone to where they can get them on a 5-to-5 boat. And the crew member's down on deck, and he's saying, guys, I'm going to tell you, a lot of you, you know, you've already got jigs tied on. You're all planning on fishing jigs. We haven't been hooking any bluefin on the jigs. I'm going to tell you, fly line baits, fly line sardines, and if you need some help hooking them on, selecting a bait, we're more than happy to help you out. So we slide in on our first school, and I look around the boat, and I am the only guy fly lining a bait.
Everybody stay with the iron? They didn't listen to the crew.
They didn't listen to the crew.
Yeah,
I had a good day. I had 6.
Yeah.
I did exactly what the crew told me to do. So many people just, I don't know what it is. They think that, you know, oh, this kid had, how can this kid tell me what the best tip is for the day?
Because he's out on the water for
he's
the last week.
He's out on the water 300 days of the year.
Watching and seeing. And
he wants us to catch fish.
Absolutely.
They catch fish. We pay to have him fillet them.
That's
they make
right.
money.
That's right.
He wants us to catch fish. That's a huge thing. Not following your fish is another one. Again, you're not listening to the crew. Not retying after catching a fish. You know, feel it. Feel your line. You'll feel the fray from their teeth or their tail or maybe, you know, rubbed on the boat a little bit.
If you don't feel the fray, do you still change?
I still retie.
Yeah, I can tell you do.
Yeah.
I take a chance and it burns me every once in a while. I hate it. It's such a bummer, isn't it? Because you had it within your control, dude.
Yeah. When I do make a mistake.
I have another question.
I hope it's a better one than the last one.
So I like to calico fish just like you, and I go to the bait receiver here, and sometimes I'm lucky and they have excellent cured bait, and sometimes not so much. What do you do, since I know you like to fish bait, what do you do in a situation to where you don't have ideal bait? That bait is not swimming away from the boat, or, you know, you just can't find a good bait. Is there something that you do differently? I mean, are you prepared with artificials? What do you do in that situation?
I try to hook the bait in different ways. Like there's a lot of times we'll be out fishing that bluefin, and there's like 0 wind. It's just flat, greasy, calm, and you can't get your bait to get away from the boat.
Yeah.
So even though I'm a shoulder hook guy most of the time,
You're going to butt hook.
I'm going to butt hook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do something
Different
to try to get my bait further away from the boat.
Sure. You find that shoulder hook day in and day out is the best way, it sounds like.
You know, I can soak a shoulder hook bait. I've soaked some for 25 minutes and still gotten a bite.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know,
so on a long soak, you feel like that's way better, right? Yeah.
Well, what we started doing, the shoulder hook actually came from the Double Trouble on the Kite. They shoulder hook their baits, and they send these 2 baits out there, and they skip around on the surface of the water, and the tuna see that, and they come up and eat them. Well, we noticed that the baits were living a long time, so we started using it for fly line.
Uh-huh.
Tuna are down here. Tuna are down deep, and they're looking up at the bait. If I'm shoulder hooked, they don't see my hook because the hook's on the upper part of the bait.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
And what recommendations would you make to someone who's listening to this episode for the first time, just started fishing on the Monte Carlo, but he wants to go after that big trophy tuna when the season picks up here? What recommendations as far as gear would you say that he's a limited budget, he wants to get one good rod, one good setup, some tackle? What do you recommend for that person to get?
You know, you need to, if you're going to try to fish for the bluefin, you could get by with a star drag reel, but you're gonna have a lot better time with a lever drag reel. There are some low cost ways to go about it. You know, Penn Fathom is a good way to get started.
You thought that was a pretty good reel, actually, right?
That's a good reel.
Yeah.
Okuma makes a couple of. I've been waiting for an Alejos for a couple of years. They had a lot of problems, and then they're probably stuck on a boat right out there somewhere right now. I've been waiting to get my hands on a lay hose for a long time. Okuma has a 2-speed lever drag reel called the Cavella. You might be able to pick up like an older, what was that thing called? Oh, it's called an Andros. When I first got on with Okuma, I got some Andros reels, and I still have them, and they still work great. It's a good 30, 40-pound 2-speed reel, and just get a 2-speed reel and a decent rod to go with it, and get with the crew and have the crew show you how to hook the bait on, and start doing what everybody else is doing. Do the tuna shuffle and
listen to your crew. Very important. Andrew Deal says great show, and he wants to know if you can get your cell number and get a charter price on that boat in Panama. He's asking about that right now. So chunking. We're talking about chunking for tuna, slurfs fishing for wahoo with carrots. Can you? Have you ever tried, like, in a bite at San Clemente Island, where guys are hooking yellows left and right on sardines? Have you ever chunked in that environment? And if you haven't, what do you think? Would it work?
We've done that on the Highliner. We're running out of bait and we're catching yellows, and we've chunked some stuff up and caught yellows that way. XL used to make fun of me because I was fishing chunks so much, and we were on. That's where I met Matt, was a friend of Gary LaCroix's, and he came on our Team Redondo trip on the Shogun. We would run every fall.
Yeah.
And XL was there, and so he started making fun of me, and he pinned a chunk on while we were fishing for yellows, and he caught a yellow.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So I mean, does it work like for all species, do you think? Like calico bass, sand bass?
Absolutely.
I'm going to try that. I got to freaking do that. Like in a wide open bite. And how about like when there's live squid, or like you got the candy bait? If you take a chunk, and they might be on the squid then. They might be locked in on that, but who knows?
They'll bite squid chunks.
That's for sure. You think? If you took a squid.
One of the guys I used to build houses for, he went on the Royal Star, and they were cutting up Humboldt squid and chunking with them, and he actually got a bite on
I'm in, man.
At a Lejos.
Screw that, go to the bait tank and choose a good hot bait. The hardest bait to catch is the one you want to put on your hook. Yeah, just give me a crappy chunk, and I'll toss it out there. It works, though, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
David, well, what do you think? Yeah? What a show. I mean, you have imparted so much great knowledge. It's perfectly obvious to me why everybody comes to me and says you're a great guy and a nice guy, because you certainly are. And I have enjoyed this tonight. I don't know how long we've been going, but it has gone by so fast. We do need to do our drawing now, or what do we call it? The tackle grab. The Friedman Adventures tackle grab. And, you're going to say something?
The tackle grab.
Oh, yes, the tackle grab.
We have a tackle bag going out today, some Daiwa swag, along with some ahi lures that you guys could use for calico fishing, yellowtail fishing this season, tuna fishing. They'll work really great for that. So without further ado,
I'll do the drawing here real quick, David. I do want to make one comment, though. Steve put us in a different position tonight, looking out here. And the first time I'm actually looking at the camera, Mike Morrison is saying I need plastic surgery. So I think I'm going to turn sideways from now on, Mike Morrison. All right, the wheel is spinning for this great and beautiful prize here this evening. And the winner is... How did you know? It is Tracy Sunshine.
Awesome.
Yeah, Tracy, congratulations. I hope you're watching tonight. And Steve, as he said, has an awesome pack he'll be sending out to you. Steve's very good about sending that stuff out. You'll see that in the next couple of years for sure. Just kidding. All right, I want to thank 22nd Street Landy one more time again. Daiwa, our rod and reel sponsor. You see them right behind me. Opsin Fluorocarbon, CCA, Fish Taco Chronicles Magazine. The tackle grab was great tonight. You can follow Friedman Adventures on Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Check out this year's charters on Facebook, Friedman Adventures, and become a Patreon member so we can continue to produce great content like this for you all. Thank our studio audience today, our vast studio audience. Matt Schlurf, thanks for being here. Thanks for the ride over here, too. There would have been no show without you. And David, thank you, my friend.
All right. Thank you
What
for
an
having
awesome
me.
show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for adding a touch of class to our show. And we'll see you again really, really soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you.